Yeah.
Hello. Today we're going to be talking about Savarion again. I'm Corbin. This is Kyle and Jeff in their correct seats when I say where they're actually sitting. And we're going to be talking about the Larithian Guard today.
Mhm.
Doing this again.
All right, let's go.
Let's do this. This is from Duendelvin, by the way. I missed that. If
we were trying out some different settings and scenarios in our studio.
it's very high quality. There's so much like expensive stuff everywhere.
Oh yes,
It's so like professional.
duct tape and cardboard, baby. Let's go.
We're not
We don't have any duct tape.
we're not propping our cameras on cardboard
It's
boxes.
in my car.
We have cardboard. No
That's
duct
true.
tape.
No duct tape.
No duct tape.
So
All right,
electrical tape, I
Larithian Guard. What are they?
Oh, so the Larithian Guard are one of our independent factions. They were formed and created after the Affirmation, and out of necessity because there were underworld creatures that were bursting up out of these rifts that were created as the Horakai used the weapons to decimate the nine armies as well as banish Vagog. They and the Insane Minotaur made a nice big hole in the way things, so that things could come through from the underworld and wreak havoc.
He poked the balloon.
He did. He
All
popped
a
the
little
balloon.
air came out.
Yeah, he popped the balloon. And so then it created these rift spaces. And eventually the Larithian Guard gets formed, but before the Larithian Guard actually becomes a formatted functional thing, they were kind of just a bunch of people who felt a desire to fight evil. And then they would have effectively formed a more coherent, functional group. Yeah. It's been they're kind of a goofy goober set, man.
Except nothing about them is goofy or goober. They're all about violence.
No defense. Defense.
Violent defense.
Well, I mean, you have to be violent when someone's trying to kill you.
No, you need to hold their hand.
No, we don't. You don't stick flowers in gun barrels because then you just get a flower on your grave.
I'm just assuming they let you keep your gun.
Anyway, we're so off the rails here. Yeah, no, the Larithian Guard is they're. I'm trying to think a good comparison would be like in Game of Thrones, you had the guys that went to the wall. Only it wasn't a punishment; it's a volunteer base. You choose to serve in the Larithian Guard. You don't necessarily choose to serve at the wall. That's a good comparison. Best I can think of at the top of my head.
I guess so.
Do you have one that is for people who don't know what Game of Thrones is? Like me?
Well, we don't necessarily have to do a comparison.
No.
So there's 12 different locations throughout the world of Savarion post-affirmation where the barrier between the overworld and the underworld is weak. And so occasionally evil from the underworld comes up through into the natural world. And the Larithian Guard is formed to combat that. Like I don't think there needs to be a comparison because they have recruiters all over the world looking for people who are willing to do this. And then they recruit into the Larithian Guard. It's a high honor. And the Larithian Guard stands outside of
Every nation.
the nations. And so they exist on their own, almost as if they are set apart from the law, not necessarily above it, but set apart from the law. So all of the empires and Garthia, Wabi, all of them, leave them alone to do their own work. So
They are one of our how many? Yep. What 5 independent factions? Because you have the Traders Guild, the Caravanners, the Pirates,
The merchants.
Well, that's the Traders Guild.
that's the treasure.
And then you have
The Farmers Union.
The Farmers Union. That's what I was trying to figure out. And then you have the Larithian Guard.
Mhm.
So we have 5 independent groups that exist beyond borders within our world,
Yep.
and this is one of
I
them.
wanted
Yeah.
to make another one, but it got vetoed.
Okay.
we yeah, and we have the secret societies, but they're secret, so we don't count them as actively functionally working around.
If no one knows you
That was a
exist,
good
you
shout
don't do
out
anything.
from our guy in the chair who's like, we have secret societies, but I'm like, Yeah, we do.
Well, and we have we have the timekeepers, the swamp dwellers, the wisdom seekers.
But they're kingdoms in themselves because
I mean, they're independent though.
fair, but they operate as independent, like as their own kingdoms. The Larithian Guard just operates across the entire world. They don't operate as a separate kingdom.
Oh, and when the
Right.
Larithian Guard comes by, you kind of step out the way, because if they're here, there's something wrong.
Generally, yeah, and they're not. They don't. I'm sure there's abuse that happens with their authority because they have a lot of clout. They say I'm with the Larithian Guard, then people are like, oh, okay, and they kind of give them that respect that's due. And I can absolutely see some people abusing that, maybe as deserters who still have the uniform, or people who couldn't hack it. But those get rooted out quick because they have their own agents called scouts, and their scouts are absolutely
gonna hunt
terrifying
you
monsters.
down.
And yeah, if you abuse that, they're also going to be the ones that snatch you up and discipline you. Don't get spanked.
They're gonna feed you to the underworld.
No, they would not feed the underworld, but they would definitely spank you for your purposes, like for your transgressions, and just besmirching the good name of the guard.
Right.
Yeah, and they're a pretty wild and successful group of hardened fighters. So they became a necessity, like we talked about, because of the incursions that happened, and they ended up making their home base on the island of Larithia, which is in the middle of everything.
Really wonder where they got their name.
Uh-huh. And on that island of Larithia, that is where Vagog was set down, like imprisoned the second time. And so it's the biggest incursion hole.
So, what does this hole look like? Is it just like a big giant hole into, like, essentially hell?
No.
Or I guess the underworld? Because your underworld isn't.
It would be like
hell.
a gate that would open up. And you'd have like a rift gate that would open and people would
like a-
come through.
Like a portal? Or is
Like
it
a
like,
portal, yeah.
like a Torii gate? Or
So, not quite like Pacific Rim, where it like rips open and then kind of sits above, but effectively, yeah, you have this gaping hole that opens up and things emerge aggressively and quickly through. And they try and secure a beachhead. So the island, like the city of Larithia,
so just like a portal opens up? Because how
Yeah.
I was viewing it was just a hole
no, it's not a permanent hole.
that
It
things
be-
would occasionally come through.
like you would feel this unease, and there would be a lingering like gloom around the area, most definitely, because we're talking about a constant leak of underworld energy coming out. But it would overall just look like normal ground until the hole opened up, and you're like, oh
Whop.
no, hole no.
It is time.
What kinds of things are coming out?
So
Like, what are these guards fighting?
we have creatures in the underworld. Normally, you wouldn't see something like the Kamatai. The Kamatai don't always come up with an incursion.
Well, there's only 3 of them.
Yeah, but if they do come up, it create a lot of notice. That's different. Yeah, that's pretty massive. Sometimes the Mortuan would come up, but I feel like most of what you'd be dealing with is undead and flesh sculpted monsters, because the Immortuum are flesh sculptors. So they're looking for new toys to play with. They don't necessarily kill you entirely. A lot of times they will snatch you and take you down. You go down to the underground, and then you become a flesh sculpty plaything.
And then the other thing that the underworld has is the mortals.
There are mortals
their
there.
mortal races are in the underworld as well. Those who went to the underworld or whatever, but the natural world would see them as corrupt, and they would see themselves as fixed.
Yep.
So because they have direct access to either Vagog or Veritas Sanctus, not necessarily direct access, but they have a closer access point to those two gods. And so you would get the mortals would come up out trying to fight for that purpose. And so the Larithian Guard would wipe them out as well.
So would those flesh monsters be like the Larithian Guard?
The
What?
flesh monsters?
Yeah, because if a Kamatai came up and snatched some of the...
Kamatai is coming up, and they're calling the Coriatii. That's the whole point. The Kamatai don't come up, because then the Coriatii get involved.
Right.
How do they do the snatching?
So, like, if people come up and, like, capture you, then yes. So I guess what you're saying is, yes, if someone were to be wiped out, not everyone would die, and they would
So
drag
you
people
could
down.
be fighting people you know that are abominations.
Yeah, it's entirely
Yeah.
possible.
Okay.
But the Kamatai wouldn't. I mean, you wouldn't see the Kamatai step up because the Coriatii would get
I
involved.
was just thinking
And
they'd
the
be
Coriatii
like,
were,
yoink, and
were
then they'd go
specifically
away.
designed to combat the underworld. That was their purpose. So they're more powerful.
When you said that, I just thought, oh, the Coriatii come up like almost every time when they take like 1 or 2 people.
Well, the
And then
Coriatii,
they're just gone.
the Coriatii come down. The Kamatai come up. And the Kamatai don't come up because then it invokes the Coriatii. And then you have 2 demigods, or 2 lesser gods, not demigods, lesser gods, clashing on a field of battle, which would generally leave a lot of damage. You know, in anime when they have the big booms, like the big fights that just change landscapes, that's 2 demigods going at it. Not demigods, I did it wrong again. 2 lesser gods having combat is going to change maps. So it doesn't happen very often.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the Kamatai probably don't want to die.
I mean, they already lost one of their people.
How'd they lose him again?
Clat said smite.
Be gone.
And Clat infused holy magic into his strikes and smote him down to pieces.
Of course it was Clat.
Of course it was Clat. No one else could do it.
Well, anybody else could do it, but
no one else could do it at the
I
time.
liked Clat.
And we liked Clat.
Clat's pretty neat.
All right. What other questions you got?
That's a great question. What questions do I got? How do they work? Like, are they just a coagulation of people who just fight the undead?
They do have a structure, and I think Jeff is a great example of, like, he can speak to the structure of the Larithian Guard. We spent some time working on this. So, yeah.
So they're broken into ranks. So I'll just read them the way that we have them written. I'll probably embellish a little bit, but
You should be able to
so we
type.
have our recruiters are the lowest rank. So this will be lowest rank to highest rank. In the Larithian Guard, the recruiters are the lowest rank because they don't actually have the strength or fortitude to participate in the fight itself. And so they're the kind of people who are like, I want to compete, I want to fight, but I can't. I want to help, but I can't. And so they're recruiters. And to be a Larithian Guardsman would take an enormous amount of strength and fortitude to even participate as a guardsman. So these would be individuals who thought they could and failed out of training or whatnot. But they travel the world and find other people who want to be part of the Larithian Guard. So our next one is protectors. These are your just out of basic training individuals. So they don't have a ton of experience. They're just learning. And they go to our smaller ruins. So the 9 races, when they were decimated by the Horakai, those places created a rift. So there's 9, I guess that would be 9. There's 9 places throughout the world that are the last stand of Sergath, Saluth, Zedge, all that kind of stuff. That would be your smaller posts. Doesn't happen real often that there is an incursion. When it does happen, it's not so bad, right? So your protectors are going to be the ones that are sent out to that area to kind of get their feet wet, so to speak. You would have higher ranking individuals within those, kind of guiding and, helping out with that kind of stuff. But your recruits are going to go there right after basic. So then you have your guardians. These are the ones that are going to be your more experienced at your smaller branches, and then they're going to be the ones that you're going to start moving into the 2 big ones. So the 2 big ones are where the Insane Minotaur opened the portal for the very first time, and the place where after the 9 armies were decimated, they all gathered, and they made like one last stand. And then the Horakai decimated that spot. Those 2 rifts are more common. So more things happen there and bigger fights happen there.
Poke some bigger holes.
Yes, bigger holes. So those are where your guardians are going to be. And then you have your scouts, which once you have gotten a certain level in as a guardian, you become powerful enough. Now these are going to be the next 2, the scouts and the sentinels are your tier 6 essence wielders and above. So these are your powerhouses. Okay. So you get divided into one of 2 teams once you get to that level, scout and sentinel. If you're a scout, you travel the world and you look for the cultist groups that are trying to create little rifts, and people who are doing unsavory dark magic things that are trying to summon essence wraiths and stuff like that. So your scouts are going to be the ones that actually go to and take care of incidents, like they're looking for incidents, right? And these guys are obscenely powerful.
Would they be like your tier 6ers?
Yeah. So these are guys, like if you saw a scout, and the Larithian Guard wears their rank always, right? So a scout isn't going to be somebody in the Larithian Guard. The scout isn't somebody who like is, sneaking around and, trying to be sneaky and all that kind of stuff. The scout is the guy that shows up and is like, you guys are doing something wrong. I'm going to stop you. And one scout has the ability to take out like a small group of cultists. Scouts are something else power-wise.
Yeah, you find them in the Shar, they got that rank on them.
They got that rank on them.
They never
It's
take
like-
it off.
They just don't ever take
It
it
is
off.
part of them.
With respect, yes, if they're going to bathe, they're going to take their rank off because the rank is attached to their clothing. Right? They're not going to have
Unless they
etched
brand
onto
it.
I mean, they could have branded it, but I don't know how
Well,
gung-ho
you'd
you
have
want
to
They
get a
don't have
new
to.
branding every time you rank up
I mean, considering our rank is just an add-on.
Right.
I mean, you did design the rank.
of color. How do you brand
Well, but you
color?
could brand
fair.
it as uncolored and just the growth.
Rings.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
all right. So scouts, and then sentinels. These are the ones that once you have made it past guardsmen, you're stepping up, and it's like, okay, you could be a scout or a sentinel. If you get chosen as a sentinel, you actually go to Larithia.
Yep.
And participate in the incursions in Larithia. Now, Larithia has an incursion monthly, almost every month. Sometimes more than one, sometimes a little less, but on average, it's about once a month that they have an incursion in Larithia. It's almost like the underworld is trying to come up through Larithia. No matter how hard the fight is, that's where it is. And so sentinels would die all the time, but it would be where you would go as when you are the most elite. Okay. Now the next three are more about the position and less about your abilities. So you can be an Archon or a Legionnaire without being a Sentinel. Maybe you just have really, really good leadership skills. And so you get promoted. So your Archons are going to be your team leaders. A team is made up of 20 soldiers. So Sentinels, Guardians, and Protectors. Those three are going to be your teams are going to be made up of those three ranks. And then your Archon, you have one Archon that leads 20 of them. So depending on where you're at, depends on who's doing what and which ranks you have in there, but your Archons are leading that. And then your Legionnaires are one per area. So there's 12 Legionnaires total, right? So there's a Legionnaire at each of the last stands. There's a Legionnaire at the two majors. And then there's one Legionnaire who's in charge of Larithia. Okay, and then you have your War Master who is in charge of the Larithian Guard. So that's the structure of how the ranks work. And then in the small outposts, you would have three teams. They have three teams. Yep. In the large outposts, there's 6 teams, and then there's 13 teams in Larithia. So there's 13 teams. There's like 260 Legionnaires standing guard in Larithia, with 13 Archons and a Legionnaire in Larithia. Okay. Now that's your warriors that actually participate in the fight. And then you would have...
What's the rank that you get when you go to Larithian? I think we called them Legionnaires twice. I did the same thing earlier.
Sentinels.
Sentinels. You have 260 Sentinels.
Sentinels.
Yeah,
Sorry.
You're good.
My apologies.
No, I did the same thing
260
earlier.
Sentinels. Yeah, and so then at each of the posts, right, the 12 posts, you would also have like a small village that would sprout up. And so you'd have support personnel who are technically not part of the Larithian Guard, but somebody's got to cook food, somebody's got to fix your gear, somebody's got to, take the mail around, your tailors,
Someone's
all that kind of
putting
stuff.
your rank on your new.
Somebody's got to sew on your rank. So like, I mean, it would be, almost like you go to a military base here in America and you have your soldiers who wear uniforms, and then you have like people who work at the King Supers. It's called a commissary, but basically you have
people who work in support function attached to military outposts.
who have
work
not
at the Kroger.
who work at the Kroger, but aren't soldiers. So so that's how the Larithian Guard works. The War Master has a direct line to the Coriatii. So the person who gets promoted to War Master actually gets a meeting with the Coriatii, and has a direct line contact with the Coriatii. Now the Coriatii, for those of you who don't know, if you go back and watch our creation ones, the Coriatii were specifically created to maintain the underworld, to keep the underworld at bay. So they are super powerful lesser gods.
They're like the super guardsmen.
Super guardsmen. So the Coriatii, in the grand scheme of things, you have your 4 major gods: Dysactos, Veritus Sanctus, Parbucon, and Vagok, right? And then you have your 4 lesser gods: your Coriatii, your Sprites, your Comitai, and your Mortrum. The Coriatii are going to be the most powerful of those. And there aren't as many of them, but they are crazy powerful. But because of the things that happened in the underworld and because of what the Larithian Guard did to step in and participate, the Coriatii don't have to participate as often anymore. And so they don't on incursions. They're optimistically lazy.
I mean, they'll step in when they need
Opportunistically
to.
lazy.
Yep.
When they're called.
So-
Yep. But usually they're only called if it's a full force of a mortuum, you're gonna see a Commandant.
I can just see
Coriatii.
I can just see the Coriatii and the War Boss just chilling, playing games.
Oh no,
having fun.
War Master's absolutely like busy constantly.
Yeah, I figured.
There's no
but
way he could just
they're
chill.
buddies.
Oh yeah, well I'm sure he would probably have them in council quite often. Be like, hey, we've seen a decrease in incursions from this area. What do you think? Should we expect a big one? Because the Coriatii I have been watching consistently for their entire existence and only got involved once.
Watching.
That's it, one time that we have a big record of,
Always
and that was during
watching.
the underworld incursion during at the end of the fall. They helped put everything back into the underworld.
Yep.
That was
Get back in
rebirth.
your box.
They really did. They came down and were like pushing away, like, okay, it's not really a broom, but they were effectively slashing things and then making them go back in the hole.
Yep. Pushing them back.
Go back where you came from.
Exactly.
And then one last thing I wanted to say about the Larithian Guard's power. So all of the empires kind of own the continent that they're on. Garthia owns Garthia and all the trade routes. The pirates own the seas. Wabi is owned by the Farmers Union, all that kind of stuff. The Larithian Guard, if there was an organization that had the most authority anywhere in the world, it would be the Larithian Guard. Because if the War Master says we need help and sends out a call, everyone responds. Because there is no benefit to not responding to the Larithian Guard, right? If the War Master of the
Condor's
Larithian
calling.
Guard says we need help, everyone responds. So they are definitely the go-to powerhouse of the world. They also, I mean,
They employ the strongest in the world.
yeah. So
Generally, if you kind of talk about this, there's a level that you can achieve as an essence wielder that if you're pushed into aggressive positions for so long, you end up in a demigod type status. The Larithian Guard stopped just short of demigod status. It's part of their pact with the Coriatii to be able to have that direct line and that help. If they exceed that level, they get to go and get removed from existence by the Coriatii because they're like, you become too dangerous and you have the capacity to upset the balance. End yourself quietly, or we're taking you down.
and so most Larithian Guardians, when they become that level where they're getting close, they either go straight into a training capacity where they teach the new ones how to fight and they don't actually do any more fighting,
Yep.
or
Fully
they
retire.
go to full retirement.
And then the Legionnaires end up being plucked from the retired Larithian Guardmen. So our Legionnaires are monsters, but they know they can't participate in the fight unless it's dire.
So they just go fight that.
Yep.
Go there.
But they have the battle instincts and the value and the knowledge, and they've seen enough that they know what to expect, how to position, how to assist, where to behave. And yeah, they're monsters in their own right. It's not uncommon. It's happened in the past where an incursion got bad enough that a Legionnaire had to get into the combat and then effectively had to submit to being executed because they achieved too much of a power.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of a wild concept. Talk about service. To be like, yeah, bro, if I don't do this, we're all going to die. But I'm going to die in the process of doing this. And if I don't, I have to give up my life anyways. I've had a good run.
I've had a good run.
Game's over for me.
Effectively, yeah.
We talked about it a bit. Do you want to share the emblem and the ranking system?
Yeah,
How
go
they
for it.
like
We did the rankings
Yeah.
already, but if
We
we,
did- we
could
talked
show
about-
it.
like
talked about their-
the emblem ranking.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
The coloration that goes with each rank. Because
You
for it, I don't-
finalized it. I just spitballed. I don't know what you
We
actually
did a lot of
landed on.
spitballing. I mean, the symbol is pretty. We couldn't find the name for it, so it's kind of hard to fathom. But effectively, it's like four individual flower petals that come together to make one symbol, but they don't look. They're not soft like a flower petal. It's more like a shield. I don't remember the name for it. Couldn't find it. We'll have to.
They got little butts.
Oh, you want to show it?
I mean, we could take a picture and put it on the
It
video.
is. It is like very small. Very small.
It was a little sketch.
Ignore the kite shield because that was the first draft. And we're not gonna go with the kite
No
shield.
pizza pie.
But yeah, there's that symbol. That's what you're gonna see.
Focus.
There. Oh. Whoa.
Whoa.
Whoa. These are my notes.
Whoa.
All right. So while we're trying to get it to focus and behave, and you guys may get sick. Look at that paper. Look at that paper go. Oh man. The way it happens is you start off with just that symbol, and then that's like your recruiter. Your recruiter wears that symbol proudly. And then the circles around it come later.
You get
As
your rings.
Progress, you get your rings, and then when you move into the leadership role, your rings have colors. Now, I just talk about this. Like their actual uniform is. Huh? Oh, we have to refocus the picture.
Uh-oh.
But their actual emblem is purple on a field of red. Like red is their primary livery color. Obviously, it's an idea to make it so that if they're bleeding, it's hard to notice that they're actually bleeding or wounded, which makes it a little more intimidating to people when they're coming up. So they're like, we keep hitting him and he just doesn't die. And he's low-key like bleeding out. He's exsanguinating, but he's like,
Still
"Can't
screaming
tell,
at you.
and I'm coming at you.
Still screaming.
Which also stands to reason that a lot of our last standers are going to come from our Larithian Guard. They don't know what they're doing, but they're also contributing to the zombie infestation of the world.
They're helping, but they're also kind of hurting. But they don't know what they're doing,
yeah.
so.
They don't understand that that's what's happening when they last stand, but it would not be.
Nobody understands what happens when you last stand.
Nope.
The orcs just really hate it.
Well, because yeah, then you can't commit them. Something's wrong when they try to commit your body to the wall. Because
You
then your body
stand
just
back
burns, but
up, and they're
nothing
like, what
happens.
just happened?
So while the other races don't really care,
And it
the-
would be more low.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, so that's their rank structure, and then they get different colored bands that go with your rank, and then War Master has like all the
Got a
rings.
really tall hat.
No, he doesn't have a really tall hat. But I mean, keep in mind their armor is highly used. It's got to be maintained, but it's gonna be dented, damaged, dinged. Very functional, and some of the higher tier, like it would not be uncommon for the Traders Guild to be like, oh hey, let me just make a donation of our finest crafted materials for our finest crafted weaponry for you. Or they'd put out a request, say, hey, we're in need of this, and they would be able to recover that. They're not paying for food from the farmers union. They're not having to worry about any of that stuff.
you'd also have smiths there that could
could
repair. So it would look dented and scratched and all that kind of stuff, but it would be in good functional condition.
Yeah, it's like, oh, hey, your arm got
So
like pushed in and there's a huge dent. Let me just buff it out real quick.
I mean, we're talking every 3-4 weeks, 260 pieces of armor, shields, and weapons have to get fixed every 4 weeks.
As well as ammunition being replenished, and if it's a higher tier ammunition, like infused arrows, you've got to
Right.
go through that process.
So these guys are working overtime.
Well,
all
I mean,
the time.
they'd be getting this stuff because they are protecting the world. So
Right.
Everyone
like-
kind of low-key pays a tithe. It's not a requirement, but they pay it.
no, but if they stop, everyone dies, and then they have to fend for themselves.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, we'll give you some food.
But that's why their armor would look dented and scratched and all that kind of stuff, because it's like all we're doing is making it functionally ready to fight again.
We're not giving you pretty armor. You just got armor that works.
Yep. And so your smiths wouldn't be the fancy smiths. Your smiths would be your effective,
Yep.
timers.
Oh.
So
Would the scout armor be a little more fancy?
Nope.
no, it would be more utility.
Yep.
So your sentinels and guardians and protectors that are stationed are probably going to wear metal, whereas your scouts are probably going to be wearing leather.
medium armor of some type.
Yeah, a medium level
medium
armor.
tiers.
No, you gotta
So,
march
leather,
around the
chain.
continent in full plate.
No.
Oh, hard no. Yeah, their equipment will be well used, well worn, but they would honestly polish and wear their symbol of the Larithian Guard and their rank proudly. That would be the place that they would take the most painstaking care to keep it. It's always on the right pauldron, the right shoulder is where they keep their symbols. Yeah,
So.
that's pretty much it for the start of the
All right,
Larithian Guard.
yeah.
We've got a lot more we can kind of dive into another time. I don't know if we have another episode for them. I think we
I
have.
don't think we do for the Larithian Guard.
I mean, if we have questions, we can definitely tackle them.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I just don't. I don't think there's a
You
whole lot
popped
more
this
that the
one out of the
Larithian Guard
blue.
needs to specifically be about. I mean, we can talk about them alongside other factions and stuff, and how they participate in the world and different events.
Yeah.
But I think we're okay with.
Okay. So yeah, we can just rock with one episode with them, and then if there's more questions, we can always revisit and we can
Yeah,
talk
we-
about them more.
Yeah.
We fly Kungan a lot. Just pop up a question out of nowhere.
Yeah.
We'll answer. We do that on our own anyway.
Alrighty. Well, we are running out of time, so just a reminder: we are live on Kickstarter.
Yes.
Go like, share the posts on Facebook and Instagram. Support us on Kickstarter,
Yeah.
so that we
Buy the
can
game.
get this
it can
out
be a
here
war.
for you
leader
guys
too.
to play.
Yeah.
So-
The game. Yeah. We'd love to see that support come in, and obviously share this as well. It's we love it when we have more viewers and more questions, and it helps to flush the world out. And you get the chance right now, especially, to come in and throw your 2 cents in, and make yourself a part of the greater world of Savarion.
Yeah.
Which we've done already.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
we got a Moo Emporium.
We do have the Moo Moo Emporium.
We'll be live on Tuesday.
Yep. This coming Tuesday.
We're not normally live Thursday. We threw a curveball today.
Yeah.
But
we had a special
live-
episode on Tuesday.
yeah, we did. It was really special.
So, yeah,
All right. Well, thank you all,
1
and
p.m.
we'll see you on
Mountain
Tuesday.
Standard Time.
1 p.m. Mountain Standard Time on Tuesday.
Taunton Manor Studio.
Taunton Man.